Welcome back, everybody, to another exciting DuckmanCycles in VW Garage. Anyway, we're testing the audio because last video, we didn't have any until the end of it. It should be working now, though. Hopefully. There it is. Anyway, this Fastback we've been working on, you guys know. We replaced the carburetors on it. The fuel injection pump has been removed. Rather, we installed a very light PSI pump for the carburetors up front here. I'm ready to start taking it off the stands because I got it test run when it started to run the other night, and I couldn't run the camera because it started to pour too damn hard. But I got this together, and I started finalizing a few other things. So let me show you what we had, because we ran into some real problems with this thing. And it turned out to be quite a fight. It took a lot more work than I expected because there was a defect. Anyway, I've gotten it solved, so likey, comment, subscribe. Don't forget to plug that dingle bell so you get updates every time I video. Check out DuckShit.net for all my social media links, and we'll be back right after that intro. Now, hopefully the wind's not affecting too much. We're expecting 70-mile-an-hour gusts today in this weather. Yeah, it's humidity's way up. It's like 77 degrees. It's just enough to make yourself stick to everything. It is gross. Anyway, let me show you what we got going on here. All right in here. Yes, we did an oil change on it too. Very uneventful. We were worried a little bit this thing might be overheating because need two hands for this again. This lid's heavy. It actually has all the insulation in it, which mine is missing. It always has been. That carburetor on the right side had some of the biggest problems. I could not get this thing to idle on anything more than 2 cylinders. This side was just fine without any problems. This side wouldn't run at all unless I kind of pat the top of the opening on it, so that way it would choke it a little bit. And after having the carburetor off a few times and cleaning out the idle circuits and blah, 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 fighting with the thing, it turned out that it was missing a plug from the side of the carburetor. Now, you'll see right here, it's kind of dark in there, but this camera does remarkably well when you least expect it. There's a little bolt in there because I threaded the hole where it goes on, put a little Teflon tape and screwed it right in. This is a brand new Spanish Weber carb. Remember, this is the ironic part of this because we replaced the China garbage on it, and we ended up with a problem Weber carburetor instead. While I was cleaning on the last go-around, when I sprayed some carburetor cleaner down one of the ports on it, it squirted out the side. That's when I immediately realized something was wrong. And, oh, by the way, I also switched the carburetor to see if the problem would follow the carburetor. So I put this one over here, and sure enough, it ran bad on that side. This one's easier to get to, so I immediately switched them back. And I kept fighting with this side until I fixed the plug. But anyway, as soon as I got that thing plugged, I put it all back together, and the idle circuit worked. I mean, lo and behold, right? So anyway, I showed you up on a screen there, a close-up of that, but there's a little brass plug that goes in the side of it. It wasn't there. The carburetor was shipped defective. And sure, we could have sent it on back, and we could have been a few weeks behind fighting with CB Performance by getting replacement parts for it. And I'm sure CB Performance would have taken care of us. They always do. CB Performance has been great in the 30-something years I've been buying parts from them. So I'm highly recommending them for carburetor sets just like this, as well as disc brakes and a few other things. Now, they haven't paid me for any advertisements on this, so take that with a grain of salt. This is just Duckman's advice to you. Anyway, I reconnected the vacuum line back to the transmission on it because, again, the transmission has not a solenoid, kind of like a servo on it that allows it to shift gently between gears. Without it, it kind of bangs into the next gear. It's not a very comfortable feeling. So I put that back the way it should be, but I had it off just to check to see if there was a vacuum leak in them. I could not get that side running. I mean, I started pulling things off and plugging this up and getting this, and it was quite a battle. Well, I'm doing a lot of this. So let me show you this thing running, because it ought to be just fine. Remarkably, when I put it together, though, and I got everything tight, and I just gave it an eyeball check to see if it was in sync enough, when I put my little vacuum gauge on both sides, it was even. I had a flat 10 on both sides. Okay, well, that's good. So I started opening the throttle and checking it, and it only needed a little bit of an adjustment on that side. And I mean, just a hair. All I had to do was loosen the little Allen key screw that's in there, and then just slide the bar a little over to the left. I didn't even have to extend the arm at all. I mean, that was it. Once I got past that immediately fight with that carburetor, the rest of it settled down easy, probably because I had it apart so damn many times that I just kept adjusting things until they looked right. So I had a lot more time tuning this than I realized because of all the times I had it apart. Well, I need to replace that distributor still. The new one is in here. But at this point, I should be able to take the car off the stands and take it for a drive. Now, I don't like replacing all the parts at the same time, the distributor, carburetors, all that stuff. If the system is working fine, I will replace one at a time. Because if you replace it all at once, then you don't know why the hell you're having a problem and you can't pinpoint which it is. And having dual carburetors can be kind of difficult, but again, once you have that problem, we found it was one carburetor. Anyway, we're beyond that. Again, doing a lot of talking. We need to get this thing off of the stand here. So I got to pull that out and I got to drive it off the ramps and get them out of the way. And make sure the birds are all locked up so they're in a safe spot so they don't get flattened. The ducks usually stay pretty well out of the way, although I only see one of them. Oh, the other one's over here. What are you doing over there? Let me see you. There she is. And the roos will be coming out in a little while, but this thing needs to come down from here. So I guess what we need to do is start jacking it to get it up. And then we'll pull these ramps out. I don't know why I call them ramps. The ramps are in the back. These are my loud jack stands. There we go. Now we should be able to set it down. Yeah, right, let's get over here. I think it'll fire right up. It does have a cold engine. And we'll give it a try. Anyway, remember, no chokes on this thing. Well, I tried. Nope, we're gonna have to bump the gas. Bump, bump. This ignition switch needs to be replaced. And yes, I have a part for it. Come on. Alright, well, maybe it finally gave up. That's the last task I need to do on this after the distributor, is sit down and replace this thing. And I'm hoping to do it before it starts raining. We have a squall line just a couple hours west of us. Oh man, this is painful. I don't know how he was driving it that long. There it is. Alright, it's a little cold, of course, so it's going to run a little choppy. Uh-oh, that's interesting. Alright, we'll have to check that. Look, this whole column's loose. I got to take that all apart anyway to get to this thing, so we'll get in there. Alright. The idle already sounds better than it used to. While it's cold, even with the fuel injection, that bring sound is that piece of tin right there hitting the mustache bar. I'm going to bend it a little bit to get it out of the way. It's kind of close, and it just hits. Now, my 68 doesn't have a mustache bar. It has a different mount for the engine and transmission. It's more like a Beetle. This one is more like a late model bus, so it doesn't have all that stuff. It uses a mustache bar instead. So, I don't know what mine's hitting on, but my tin bangs on something too when I first started up. But only when I started up, when the engine really bangs left and right. You know, once it's running, it's smooth and it doesn't do that. Still just a little cold. We'll let it warm up just a minute. And then she should be good to go. And then we'll get her off the stands here. So, meanwhile, oh, something else I wanted to point out. While I was over here checking out, making carburetor adjustments, I felt air. Right here, out of the cooling shroud, on both sides, there's no plugs. And that was kind of a big deal. On a Type 3, that would be the same as leaving off the cooling duct, heater. Bleh. That would be the same as leaving off the cooler ducts on a Beetle and blowing all that air out the shroud instead of onto the engine where it belongs. So he's been driving this thing like that, apparently for quite a while, and didn't realize they were open. And none of the other mechanics he ever brought it to, not Volkswagen specialist guys, bring it to somebody that knows these things. And they never thought to fix it. So I'm going to get some plumber's plugs and we'll get them capped off. Probably won't handle it in this video. Right now I'm just getting it started and moved. But if you do any real driving on that for any long distances or any amount of time, you're going to cook it. Well, that was a concern because he's been doing it for so long, but after I talked with him, most of his drives were really short distances and not very frequent. So he doesn't have a whole lot of miles nor time on it, so he got lucky. Anyway, I checked in the oil, and there was no glitter or anything like that, so it didn't appear that it had, ever compromised the oil, nor did it seem like heat ever was an issue on this thing. So I'll get them plugged up, we'll get that fixed. I'll do that same time as I do the distributor, and we should be good to go in that department. But for the meanwhile, let's just get this closed. There's a new oil I put in it. I just use 30 weight, guys. Unless it's an older engine, it has problems with oil pressure. 30 weights typically all you need, and that's what the instruction manual calls for, and that's where I like to put it in a Type 3. Isn't that cool? It just kind of fits. All right, get this closed up. And I forgot about this. This is going to have to move out of the way, isn't it? Been there since I recorded the last video. Here we go. Opens the gate. Oh, it actually stayed open. Imagine that. It never does. All right, ready to come out? You ready to come out and play? I bet you are. All right, this is our first drive in this thing to go around the neighborhood. I just fixed the windows on it too, by the way, guys. You couldn't roll them down before. It was too hard. I lubricated the entire mechanism inside the door. I lubricated all the rubber seals in the felt channel with some silicone. And after that, these windows work better than they have on any Volkswagen that I've ever messed with. All right. The Volkswagen auto is so weird. Here it is. Okay. Got that window rolled down for sure because it is stuffy in here. Like I said, it's been warm today. Alright, we're going to be listening for weird popping, acceleration problems keeping it at certain RPMs, throttle position stuff. So all these carburetor replacements can do some weird things. Well, so far so good. Vacuum line is connected to the not carburetor. Well, it is on a carburetor essentially. It goes to the intake manifolds. It's in the middle of the vacuum tube, balance tube, I should say. But it is connected to the transmission, which made the shifts nice and smooth. And right now, it is running nice. And I don't know why I'm sitting so close to the steering wheel in this thing. It's not like this in my Type 3. The seat doesn't go back any further either. But so far, so good. Try running in lower gear. Let's see if we can hold those RPMs. Alright, looking this way. That rain is coming, guys. When it comes down to it's going to be harsh. Alright, that's perfect acceleration. Shifted real nicely when I put it into the next gear. Of course, I did it manually, but I did that on purpose because I wanted to hold that RPM. That was about half throttle, and I mean, it felt like any, air-cooled Volkswagen with dual carburetors does. And there's the first rain. We're starting to get a little spray on the windshield, just a little bit. Wow. Yeah, I think those carburetors are bang on. Like I said, I made so many damn adjustments when I was trying to fix the one on the right side that I inadvertently got the balance because I just played with the linkages so much. And sure enough, when I put the little vacuum meter on there, it balanced right out. Only a slight adjustment on the left was needed, and the idles were perfect. There's a rut here. Ooh, ooh. Automatic is so weird. I keep wanting to step where the clutch is not and downshift to the gear manually and then flog it like I usually do, because that's the way I drive the Fastback around town. The Fastback. How about that? The Fastback. But I like what I see. There's no reason I couldn't actually drive this to the hardware store other than the fact that those air ducts are open and you can't drive it for too long like that. The engine's going to start getting hot pretty quickly. Thankfully, it's not summertime yet. I mean, if it was like last summer where it was 105 degrees out here, oddly, the humidity was low, though. It was more like, you know, Arizona weather. Hotter than hell and just no humidity. For like 2 months, it didn't even rain. My backyard turned into a dust bowl. Here we go. See, we got some new pavement here. I don't know when they started that. Shows I don't leave the house often enough. Well, anyway, that was 45 miles an hour. A little fast for back here with this much traffic. But it got the speed nice and easy. Yeah, there's no weird throttle feelings and no popping, backfiring, no stumbling. This is great. It'll probably have a little bit better of a throttle reaction when I get the proper 034 distributor. And this one does have a vacuum distributor in it, but he wanted a new one with electronics, so he picked one out. And it just happens to be the same one that I recommend, so I have no trouble installing it on here. But yeah, that first initial, when you go from idle to romping the throttle, there's not so much a hesitation when you got the RPMs open on it, but when you're low speed, like let's say now, there's that, feels like a 009 delay. And not so bad, really. It does have a vacuum port on this one, and maybe it's not working absolutely correctly, but it's I'm not arguing with it. This thing's actually driving really good. This is driving really, really good. This is the, it's just crazy. And I'm going to say it again. After putting carburetors on and then getting ready to tune them, this is the least tuning I've ever had to do. To this point. We'll see what happens next. But to this point, to get it driving, again, the least tuning, and just having everything apart so many damn times, I guess I pre-adjusted everything. I guess my subconscious mind was just telling me this needs to be this way, this needs to be this way, this linkage needs to be here, it looks like it's opening enough. Anyway, I've done enough that it's just become almost instinctive. And I like these dual carburetor kits, and you guys have seen me install a lot of them over the years. I think I've done the majority of them on Type 3s, also on Beetles a couple times, and then one time on a Type 4 engine on a bus. And as I've said in the earlier videos, CB Performance's carburetor kit, as they come out of box, actually seem pretty good. I'll let them all go first. Everybody go first. The jetting in there is just pretty good. I mean, there are things you can do, people suggest, to make it a little more throttle responsive or this and that, and I've done those things. And the only thing I noticed difference was my bank account was smaller. So, wow, that was a deep hole. Where did that come from? That's a sinkhole, guys. I'm gonna have to report that one to the county. That was deep. It looks like the earth just gave away underneath it. I'm gonna have to go back and look at that. Man. All right, well, anyway, what was I saying? That just totally took the steam right out of me. Anyways, the jetting, that's what it was, the jetting. I think the jetting in these are pretty good for a stock 1600 engine. The only exception that I really had to make was for an engine that was non-stock, and we didn't know what it was. The owner bought it from an auction in California, and that was that blue squareback that I had last summer. And the thing actually ran pretty good when it was with me, but if you ran it for any extended period of time, it started to get hot. And the telltale sign was when you shut it off and it starts dieseling, it starts doing that like it's running backflips. You know, it's weird. It was weird. Its power is off and the thing is just banging and knocking and still continues to run despite that. So what I did was I upped the jetting a couple sizes, and then we retarded the timing just a few degrees, about 3 degrees, and this thing ran perfect. That was it. It actually seemed to make a little more power. Oh, we put a higher octane fuel in it too. I suspect that somebody may have either put the engine together with no regard for deck height and perhaps gave it too much compression ratio, or maybe they did something to it to deliberately have a higher compression ratio, hoping for more power out of it. And the result was an engine that was too hot. So anyway, we made those adjustments on it, and I talked to the owner about it, and she's been driving it everywhere for the last year and hasn't had to stop with it at all. It's been great. So it sits in front of their new restaurant that they just opened up. It's kind of like the mascot for the restaurant, which I think is pretty cool. And this thing needs to be a gear lower. There we go. Now we're moving. The automatic transmission feels like it should be downshifting a little sooner than it did. Anyway, we're shooting past Wild Bill's over here. We'll see if he's out working. He's like me, he doesn't really stop. Just keeps working. Anyway, on my way. Let's give it a little more throttle here and see how she's going to perform. It's 55. It's driving nice and straight too. Steering is pretty good. And we're doing 60, 65. Too fast for back here again. Brakes on this thing are so touchy too. I have to be careful. They work really good. Way better than I would have anticipated. Any of my Volkswagens aren't like this. They usually have more travel in the pedal. This one's real short. Real short, and they immediately try to bind. He might have some, and I haven't checked him, maybe he's got some pressure regulators on it, or maybe he has a really big master cylinder. As you can get them a little oversized. Yeah, it's got a really solid brake on it. No travel at all. It should be downshifting right here a little more. It didn't whack it down another gear, and I think it should have. This is driving nicely. I'm going to call the carburetors tuned. When I get the timing set on it and I do some adjustments on the distributor, it may affect the carburetor tuning just a little bit. I may have to perhaps richen something up slightly or lean it back slightly. Typically, when you get the timing right, usually you need less fuel. Contrary to what some other YouTubers are always saying, well, if you just dump more fuel in it, it'll run better. No, you don't just dump more fuel in an engine, especially if it was designed to be a certain way. That's just a Band-Aid fix. Not particularly good for a lot of reasons. One, gas mileage, right? I mean, that's pretty obvious. If you're burning more gas, then you're going to get lower gas mileage. Two, carbon. The inside of your engine's going to get more sooty. Three, it washes your cylinders. So what the hell does that mean? Well, that extra fuel that gets in there will actually clean the walls of the cylinders where the oil gets deposited. So that means your pistons and rings are going to want to wear out faster. And, you know, maybe just a little richer and you're going to have slighter of a problem, but nonetheless, that just means shorter engine life. So generally, you don't want to dump more fuel in an engine to make it run better. If you have to do that, you probably have the wrong engine combination. And usually that means 009 distributor. So, yeah, 009 distributor does not belong on a Volkswagen street-driven engine. No, you need a vacuum advance. Now, there are some earlier distributors that Volkswagen did use that were mechanical advance only. And the 010 and the 011 were two examples of that, but it had a completely different timing curve than what the 009 had. Now, if you're running a compressor, a generator, aircraft engine, or even a boat engine, a 009 is fine. Now, why are those okay there? And that's because those engines typically run at the same RPM consistently, constantly. You don't accelerate. You know, the engine doesn't accelerate linearly to the road at which it's pushing off of, because there's very little slip between tires and road. Well, there's lots of slip in air between propeller and an air, or even a propeller and the water. And, of course, your compressors and generators, once you get them to RPM, you just leave them there. So anyway, here we are, coming back home. My solar panels are all covered in pollen already. That's new. It must be the wind that did that, because it wasn't like that a couple days ago. And here we are. I'm going to park this puppy right over here, and I left the gate open, which usually means the ducks escaped, but this time they didn't. Good babies. I'm going to leave the car right here in the side. This is the safest place, I believe, for cars, because there's really not a whole lot of wind right here in the side yard. We're kind of trapped in here. Let's get out for a second and have a walk around the car. And you know what? I'm actually going to back it up because I want you guys to see this car next to the Fiat. I don't know if we've done that before in this video. Maybe we have, but the colors are so similar. And I need to give this car a bath too before it goes back to the owner because it is filthy. All right, all right. Check out the color difference between these two. They are damn near the same. The Type 3 though has a slightly more yellow color, maybe even just a hint of like a tan that's in there. And this is more, kind of weird to say it when a pale blue, but this one has more of a red. That's what I see anyway. And I have really, really, really good color vision for a male. exceptional color vision. I know a lot of men sometimes have trouble with that. It runs in the genes just the way we are. But I'm the opposite. I got good eye for color. I see color like a woman. That color's fuchsia. I don't know all the names they do, but I can differentiate. Anyway, the colors are just remarkably the same. Just seeing them side by side, and the camera may not even be able to tell the difference, but anyway. Alright, well, we're going to wrap this video up for today. Like I said, it's going to storm, so I got to get back inside. And I just hope that my yard doesn't get obliterated again, but I do need to take that tent down, because that tent is probably going to get torn if I don't. So it's been blowing it around pretty hard. And then in this parking spot, we're about to get a floor pan and heater channel job. So that's going to go right in here. I'm going to need to lift the tent up for that anyway, because the body's going to go up on my body dolly. So that has to get pulled back out. I got to put some new screws in it because it got a little rickety. The chickens are in here, minding their own business. But this thing did get a little rickety, and there was a couple pieces of wood that started rotting. So I need to replace a couple components on it. Otherwise, for the most part, it's in great shape. Should be good to go. These are no flat tires, so as long as the bearings didn't lock the wheel up. Nope, that one's spinning. Chances are they're probably all going to be just fine. Well, that one's buried in dirt. I don't know. I guess we're going to see. Right, cheeky doodles? Alright, well, if they're in, locked up, that means I gotta let the boys out for as long as I can before the bad weather starts, because I want to get out and play. So it's probably a good idea that I do that now. I'm gonna give the owner an update on his squareback. Now, he'll be really pleased to know just how good it's driving, because this thing, it feels nice. This car drives very flat and smooth. Even better than Ruby, I would say. Quieter, for one thing. He must have dynomatted the whole thing. The car is actually very quiet. It feels good. The suspension feels good. It's not bouncy. It's not harsh. I don't know what size or what kind of tires are on there, but that could have made a difference too. No, I'm happy with this. Alright, well, signing off. Thanks you guys for watching. We'll see you on the next go-around. Pensacola is a funny little place, I'll admit that. And I don't know what's going on down there other than they're having a party, but they usually have parties in the front yards here versus in the backyards. I don't know, the culture here is just very different. But that's what you got going on if you can hear it. Aside from that wind blowing, man, it's really picking up out here. And look at all the weeds in the yard. Those have just grown up in the last couple days. It's just been raining so much. Grass is green and even filled in the spot where it was dead, where I killed it with the Z last summer. Now I want to see this hole fill in. Everybody keeps coming up here and tearing it up. People always say, no, you're the one driving. I go around it. I don't kill the grass. You don't see another dead wheel pattern here. This is from people doing burnouts in it. And then when it rains, it further erodes it. So now I got a hole here. It's about 6 inches deep. So when the grass finally makes its way in there, I'm just going to start sprinkling sand in it. Just little by little. Just slowly fill it up. You can see all the dirt washed its way down here. This is a mound, which is about 6 inches tall. And of course there's garbage everywhere because that's what happens when the wind blows around. Alright, well, here we go, in the trash.